All good? Great. Are you ready for the castle? Great. Just some practical information. If there's sponsors or speakers that have not received their cutting boards, if someone can hold the cutting board up, you'll get this unique gift, once in a lifetime thing, because the Drupal Developer Day spoon from France, in my case, it's destroyed by using it. So for that. Also, there are still t-shirts sales. They're 15 euros for a t-shirt. You can help support us financially also for this event. So hopefully you can do that. You can also add it to your pile of other t-shirts in your closet. And then for the castle tonight, it's at 7 p.m. The doors will open. It's a maximum capacity of 150 people. We will close the doors if we reach that capacity. We will get a fine from the city if there's more than 150 people, so it's strict. There is food and drinks in the castle, so you don't have to go to a restaurant per se. There are hamburgers, meat and no meat in the castle, so you're welcome there from 7 p.m. For your reminder, smoking is prohibited on the premises of this event, but there's a smoking area just outside of this room. Please try to hold yourself to that. Again, we don't want to pay fines because otherwise we don't have any money for working in the next years. And then also the water, you can use the water during lunch from the taps, not necessarily from the bottles, but the taps are also there for your convenience, so feel free to use those. And then the last announcement at 3 p.m., so that's 10 minutes after the break of 2:50, we will do a group picture. If it's dry outside, we will do the picture outside, otherwise in the big cafeteria area, so that we can have enough space together and not cramped together for COVID purposes. Other than that, I hope you will enjoy the keynote, and I will let Tom do the introduction.
Thank you. A very good afternoon. Before I start my introduction and myself and Calibrate, I want to thank all the sponsors, all the contributors and all the people here in this room. A very big applause. All the people in the room and also all the contributors, it's with a very big love that you also every day does Drupal and program. All right, I'm from Calibrate. I'm Tom Hollevoet. I'm coordinator at Calibrate. Calibrate, what does Calibrate? Who is Calibrate? It's a Drupal Belgium agency in Ghent, Kortrijk, Antwerp, and Leuven. Also here in Ghent. We have a very big heart for Drupal, of course, but we do a lot than Drupal. We do also Laravel, Symfony, React developments, and of course the full approach or strategic, for example, the UX, UI, or design. Today we have also a booth on our here in the Karel Sint-Lieven or Odyssey Hogeschool in the Drupal Dev Days, and you can test your PHP and Drupal knowledge. All right, enough of Calibrate and myself. I want to introduce the very lot amount of people here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people for 1 hour session. It's about the Drupal Initiative keynote. A very big applause for these guys.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. So I'm Gabor Hojci, and you've seen my name on this session, but I'm not a speaker on this session. I have my name though. Our wonderful speakers in order are Len, Leslie, Alex, Laurie, Suzanne, Neil, and Wim. Unfortunately, not all of them could make it here. So we got a video from Leslie and Suzanne. We thought that their topics are still very important to include, so we'll watch them from their recordings. And we are still here to answer any of the questions for their topics or discuss any of those topics. But the topics that we'll cover today are the Box Mesh Initiative with Len, and then the Project Browser Initiative with Leslie, then the Distributions Initiative with Alex, then all the core themes not almost all the core themes, the most important core themes with Larry, the Promote Drupal initiative with Suzanne, then the GitLab initiative with Neil, and finally CK Editor with Wim. I really like this keynote, not only because I'm the one that are organizing it and getting all of these great speakers here. For one reason, because you get to see a lot of good things all at once, and it's kind of a whirlwind of improvements and plans and developments. And for another reason, that you get to see all the people that are very actively working on these things, and ideally they are here in person if it works out, and you can get to know them in person after the session. You can go to them and get involved with them and make things happen. So you can get an insight on how these initiatives are being done, what are their current problems, what are their current progress, and you can get to meet the actual people behind the initiatives instead of one person talking about all the cool things. You can get to see the ones making it happen. And with that, the first one that we'll cover is the Bug Smash initiative with Len. So yours.
Okay, hi. I'm Len. I'm here to talk about the Bug Smash initiative, which is a community initiative to try and get a handle on all the bugs that are currently existing inside of Drupal core. As you might know, there's a fair number of bugs in core. At least there are a lot of bug reports. Gonna be moving? Because it doesn't appear to be moving. Yeah? Is it automated now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So in order to get this done, we first looked at, what do we have? So the next slide, when it shows up, will show you that we have about 7,000 open bug reports currently in core. And they have different states of being addressed. They have different priorities, but we figured, 7,000 is quite a lot, and we might want to start doing something about that. And what else did we think? Okay, so what we also want to look at is lowering the time that bugs are open. Drupal core bugs tend to be open for quite a long time. And this is a huge drain on developer resources inside the bugs or inside the Drupal community. You have to run into those bugs and try to find a fix and then apply a patch and then re-roll a patch. So we could use those resources better if it was just fixed. So grouping those two things, you can see this is a diagram of the currently open bugs in Drupal core and how long they've been open, when they were open. So some of them are 15 years old. But you can see a big spike 6-7 years ago of things that, we might want to address at some point. So how do we go about smashing bugs? So the obvious thing to do is to fix the bug. But fixing a bug in core is pretty hard. That's a lot of work. And as I pointed out, these are 7,000 bug reports. So there's lots of other things that we can do. But if we want to focus first on fixing them, we want to try and get some focus. So what we try as a group in the initiative, we try to find 4 random bugs from the issue queue and try to focus on that for 2 weeks at a time. So if somebody in the initiative has some time to work on a fix, maybe try and fix these. But fixing bugs like this is still time consuming. So we also wanted to look at triage, which is just looking at a bug and actually ascertaining, is it a bug, and is it a bug in Drupal core? Because out of those 7,000, quite a lot of them aren't, but we have to find them. So we can get a better idea of how many bugs we actually have. You can also look at closing duplicates, because out of those 7,000, quite a lot of them are actually duplicates. And then you have people working on the same fix in different places, which is a waste of time. And you can close outdated or things that are no longer relevant, that have gotten fixed in the meantime. So that can give us a better handle on how many bugs we actually have. And what we do also is in our channel, we have a daily target, so a random bug that's at least 5 years old and hasn't been worked on for a year. And we just try to triage that. See, is this still a bug, and what does it need to actually get moving again? Because nobody's worked on it for a year, and why is that? And I also try to run some bug bingo triage in Contrib Room during the week. We also do a lot of reviews. We're very aware that reviewing can be a bottleneck in the whole process. So we try to do a lot of reviewing and review swaps. We have nice novice people that want to learn to review. We also have veteran reviewers that can help do reviews. So that's one of the things we like to do. And we also want to do some mentoring. We're very aware that getting into core development and helping out Drupal core is pretty hard to get into. It has we want to try and lower the bar. And one of the ways we try to do that is through triage, because if you're triaging random issues, you get to know parts of core you never knew existed. And then that way you get more comfortable. Here's some numbers about what we achieved over the last 2 years. I'm actually standing in front of the most important number, which is over here. Is that we actually managed to lower the number of bugs in Drupal core over the last 2 years. This has not happened ever, probably, because we've gained over 7,000 over the first 15 years. And that was a community initiative. That's not just a bug smash. So how can you help? Well, the first thing that popped in here is triage your own issues. If you have some time, just look at the issues you have opened and go through them. Are they actually bugs? Is there something you can do about it? Can you make them better so we can actually take action on them? Do they have good steps to reproduce? And all the other things here are just some of the things that you can help with moving bugs along that are stuck. So how can you join us? Well, we have a channel on Slack, the Bug Smash channel, where we do, every 2 weeks, we do meetings that are asynchronous 24-hour things, because they start at impossible times for European time zones. And we try to do bug bingo triage in the contribution room. So I'm going to be there, and if you want to come help out, come find me and I'll show you what bug bingo triage is like. And maybe you can start moving some issues and get something done. Thank you, and thank you for everybody who's been working on bugs in Drupal core. Even if you're not doing it out of the name of the initiative, just awesome that you're doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would also like to thank everybody submitting the bugs even 15 years ago, because when we find that that's still a valid bug, it's very good to have 15 years of experience and all the comments from people about what went wrong and why it's bad and how they tried to fix it. There's a lot of things hidden in those 15 years of history that we can use to fix those bugs. So the next one is the Project Browser Initiative, and Leslie could not make it here, but I think this is a really important initiative that's, I guess most of the initiatives that we have are kind of these meta things that empower a lot more components to happen. So she sent a video over that I'm gonna play now.
For giving us the opportunity to update folks on the Project Browser Initiative. I'm Leslie Glynn. Myself and Chris Wells are the initiative leads. So what is the Project Browser Strategic Initiative? The goal is to make it easier to find and install modules for people that are 1, new to Drupal, and that are 2, site builders. The initiative was announced by Dries at DrupalCon Global 2021. One of the first things site builders do after installing Drupal is to add modules. Let's make this easier to do. The community has been talking about this since 2011. Robert Douglas at Drupal Dev Days and Wal Katana as part of Google's Summer of Code. Note that there are screenshots used in this presentation. Those are meant for decorative purposes, not specifically to be read. What are the goals of the MVP? The ability to browse modules compatible with the Drupal version your site is using. Provide instructions for downloading and installing modules. Initially filter by category, possibly add some advanced filtering, and initially it will be a contrib module. The goals after MVP are to automatically install via Composer using the Automated Updates Initiative, include core modules in the browser results, add filters like ecosystem and/or use case, have the detail pages be within the project browser instead of linking out to Drupal.org, expand to search themes and distributions, and hopefully it'll be a core module. So how are we organized? The Site Builder Subcommittee's focuses on research and recommendations. I lead this group. We hold listening sessions to gather input from our target audiences. We solicit feedback on the prototype for usability and ease of understanding. The regular initiative meetings, the focus is on implementation. Chris leads this group. They're currently working on creating the initial 1.0 version of the project browser. The Site Builder Subcommittee is working on the top 100 modules, the most popular Drupal 9 modules that meet the default criteria for recommended modules in the project browser. Things that are covered by Drupal security team, have at least one release, be actively maintained, and have an issue queue. We're initially working on 3 things: the short description, the logo, and the categories for these modules. This information will be displayed on the cards and the list view in the project browser. We're also looking at revisiting the categories. It's a large undertaking, but it's important for filtering on the project browser. Modules currently have between 0 and 30 categories. Several key modules have no categories. We're evaluating removing outdated categories, combining categories, renaming, and possibly adding new categories. There are currently 55 categories to choose from. We're also considering limiting the number of categories a module can have. Another thing we're doing is looking at improving the project pages on Drupal.org. The goal is to give module evaluators high-level information so they can make an informed decision. Recommendations so far include adding more screenshots and providing a template for the description field to make things more consistent across modules. In terms of implementation, a major hurdle with getting project data from Drupal.org is that the current API is inadequate for our needs. And since Drupal.org will be moving to Drupal 9 in the near future, we are developing a mock API that we can use to demonstrate how an API should be rebuilt on Drupal.org. We're also working on implementing a swappable plugin system for backends to the project browser data endpoint, so we can easily transition from the mock endpoint to the real endpoint. And this opens up the possibility of having other endpoints as well. We've been selected as an alpha tester for moving from Drupal CI to Gitlab CI for folks interested in that. We currently have minimal automated testing in place. Getting the groundwork laid would enable us to expand that more rapidly and reliably. The original prototype was built using Svelte.js as a way to rapidly create a functional front end. We need input around whether to commit to Svelte and try to get that into core, or to convert all of the Svelte code to vanilla JavaScript. Regardless of what we choose, we definitely need help with the front end. There are some UI improvements to be made based on recommendations from the Site Builder Subcommittee's user testing on the current mockups. While we currently have done a lot of great work on the card version and we have a lot of great design resources, there's always room for more input on these issues, as well as people needed to implement some of the redesign elements. Chris and I will be at DrupalCon in April. Chris will be in the general contribution room. I will be in the mentored contribution room. All skill levels are welcome to join us. There are 2 BOFs scheduled. One is an intro to the initiative, and the other will be a discussion on the project pages, and these are scheduled for Monday. So how can you help with the Project Browser initiative? Join the Project Browser channel on Drupal Slack. Our weekly meetings are held there. Work on open issues. Some were noted in the slides. Everyone is welcome to join us, all types of contributors, all skill levels. Thank you very much to those who have contributed so far. Special shout out to the Discover Drupal participants for their contributions. Thank you everyone, and we look forward to seeing you in the Project Browser channel.
All right. So you would think that the project browser is about building software that browses projects, but it turns out that a lot of it is about cleaning up the data that it's eventually displayed to the users and having better categories and better logos and screenshots and descriptions. So those are the things, if you have Drupal.org projects, you can do right now is go there and see if the description of your project makes any sense, or the categories that you have are relevant for the project, or if you have categories at all. That's a good idea to do. And now, oh yeah, and one more thing is, so Leslie mentioned that there's a discussion on which framework, or if any framework, to use for Project Browser. It's currently using Svelte.js, and other people from the Project Browser initiative are not here, unfortunately, but Laurie and Sally will be having a discussion on the general which framework we can use for these types of things in core. So you should look for Sally and Laurie later to join that discussion. I don't know if there's a specific time you already know when is that going to happen. Probably every time you can go to the castle and then approach them and like, so what about this fancy new thing? Yeah. So that's gonna happen here this week as well, and it's really exciting. So our next topic is distributions, and Alex Pot is going to present this. There you go.
Hello. Okay, I'm here today to talk to you about the Distributions Initiative. Distributions are pre-packaged bits of configuration and modules that allow you to make your Drupal do interesting things like e-commerce, e-learning. And the initiative is a really young initiative. We haven't done much yet, but there's a lot of history with distributions. Back in 2006, Dries wrote on his blog, "Distributions, I hope it all works out." He was he was hoping that distributions would lead to a world where the distributions were collaborating and not competing, and people would be able to have their Drupal do exactly what they want from the time it started. A few years later, he wrote, "We've improved the underlying technology for building distributions, and we will continue to do so for years to come. But I think we all know quite a few failed distributions along the ways, which have locked projects in and made it difficult to manage your sites. And so the community is coming together and having ideas about how to improve things. And we've got these goals. We really want to improve distribution discovery. Today, if you boot up your Drupal into the installation screen, you see minimal, standard, or demo. That's where you're starting from. But we'd like you to be able to see there maybe some other distributions like Open Social or Thunder or the next big distribution. Also at the moment, if you have one distribution like Thunder, you can't install Commerce Kickstart. You can't easily boot up to a great commerce site from your editorial site because you're only allowed one. And relatedly, we want to move to a place where you can install a distribution after you've started. Maybe you've created a blog site, but you want a commerce site, or you want some community collaboration tools and you want to install Open Social, but you can't because you installed standard. We want to change that. The next goal is that we really want to make it easier to maintain hundreds of sites from a common starting point. It's a really common use case for universities to have thousands of microsites, hundreds of microsites, and they want to be able to maintain them, and they use a distribution, but then they find it awkward. So how are we going to do that? So the big goal that one of our really, really big goals is to make it easier to update when you have distributions. Thunder has contributed a module called the Update Helper module, which is built off the configuration management module. And we want to bring some of that into core so that all distributions can do it the same way. Other distributions are already using it, so it's already an accepted standard. So bringing that into core will make it easier for everyone to use. We also want Drupal.org to support distributions better. Already some work has happened to improve the way that Composer identifies them. And we want to be able to push them as Composer projects to packagists. So instead of doing Drupal Composer create project Drupal core recommended, you can do Drupal/Thunder or whatever. And last but not least, we also want distributions to be able to ship demo content. Number of distributions ship demo content, but they do it all in different ways. They have a CSV file or something custom. And it would be great if there was a way that that would work out the box. So what have we done so far? Not very much. There's been some work on the Composer endpoints. We've started bringing some of the functionality from the configuration update manager module into core. It's specifically the revert stuff. And we're drawing up plans for how to tackle the rest of the goals. One of the questions that we're getting to, though, is should distributions even exist? Because they're really, really hard and people have got locked in and they get very, very frustrated. So we're discussing whether actually they should just be modules and that some of the more kind of installery functionality should be moved into Composer templates instead. So who's working on this? At the moment, the Drupal Association are already working on Drupal.org and the Composer endpoints. Myself from the committed team, distribution maintainers, and community members are discussing it regularly, but we're really at the planning stage. So if any of you feel strongly about this, please come seek me out and get involved because we need probably a bit of everything, project management, developers, everyone. So where to do that? Obviously you can come speak to me here, but we also have a Slack channel, #distributions. We meet regularly every other week at 4 UTC. The next meeting is on the 12th of April. What are we doing? We're building the team. We're going to refine the goals into some concrete plans. And yeah, that's where I'm going to deliver, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So next up is Laurie, and he's going to talk about almost all of the core themes in 5 minutes. Well, the ones that we are actively working on right now. There you go.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the core themes like Gabor said. That's not an initiative, so this is just an update from an overview of the different teamwork that is happening right now in Drupal 10. So we have Claro, which is an admin team, which is going to replace 7 eventually. We have Olivero, which is a front-end team, which is going to be replacing Bardic eventually. And then we have a starter kit team, which is going to be replacing Classy eventually. So let's talk about Claro first. Claro is currently an experimental team, so it's not reached stable yet. So we don't recommend using it in production. We are working on getting it first to stable and then to default, and hopefully we can achieve all of that by Drupal 10, so that will be the default experience in Drupal 10. Here's the roadmap, how that looks like for getting stable. As you can see, the list of things is getting very short. We have 1 technical debt issue, 1 bug, and then we have a couple of accessibility issues to make sure that the accessibility isn't regressing from 7. So if you're interested in that, that's cool. We also have cool stuff coming up in future. Here's an example of one of the very exciting features that the team has been working on, which is a form actions redesign. So that moves the form actions from top of the page to a sort of more interactive element, which is displayed when you have some rows checked from the table. The team is meeting weekly on Slack. That is happening at Wednesdays at 3 p.m. We have work for all sorts of backgrounds. We have PHP work, we have front-end work, and in particular, we have work for accessibility experts or people who have knowledge about that. The second team that we have been working on is Olivero. They are 1 step ahead from Claro, so they're stable, and they are trying to get to be the default front-end team when you install standard. So yeah, there's a couple of things left to be able to get to default. Most of the work is related to updating our tests to use Olivero instead of Bardic. So what is interesting is that we actually need a lot of PHP developers to help on this work. And if you're interested in something like that, join us at the sprints, and I'll show you how to get started with that. The Olivero team is also working on some pretty exciting stuff, such as a new color changing scheme, which is based on a modernized architecture. So it's not using the color module. It's instead using its own data model and a CSS variables for rendering these colors on the team. The Olivero team is meeting bi-weekly on Mondays at 3 p.m. Central European. So basically, they are running office hours. So if you have any questions or if you're interested in contributing to that, you can go say hi to the team and ask for help on your favorite issue that you're interested in working on. The third and final team, which we have been working on, is the starter kit team, which is an experimental theme generator, which is going to be replacing Classy. So Classy is a base theme, which a lot of folks are using for creating their custom themes. But the problem with Classy is that we haven't been able to make any updates to Classy since it was first introduced in Drupal 8, because of updates to the Classy theme would break the themes that are extending Classy. The idea of the starter kit theme is that instead of folks building their custom themes that extend Classy, they could copy Classy as a starting point for their team. And that would essentially allow us to provide updates in future as part of the starter kit theme. The starter kit theme also requires a lot of PHP work to be done. The roadmap is pretty short, and what is exciting, I think we are pretty close to being actually done. So if we have folks interested in working on this, we could potentially even complete this during the sprints at this event, which would be very exciting. We are working as part of the D10 Readiness Initiative. We are meeting weekly on Mondays at 8 p.m. Central European.
So join us there if you are interested, or at the sprints here. Thank you.
Thank you. So it looks like the tech people wanted me to try something else for our next speaker and use a different mic. So Suzanne could not make it here, unfortunately, but she also sent us a video about the Promote Drupal initiative, and we'll see if this mic is going to pick her voice up good enough.
I'm excited to be here talking a little bit about the Promote Drupal initiative, our journey, the work we've been doing, and how you can get involved. My name is Suzanne Dergacheva, and I'm the lead of the Promote Drupal initiative. I'm also a co-founder at Evolving Web. So as you probably know, Drupal is more than a project. It's actually a worldwide brand, and promoting it means that we want to improve Drupal's adoption rate. Drupal has been around for 20 years and is being used by lots of big organizations around the world. But if we want the project to keep growing, we need to communicate to everyone outside the Drupal sphere what Drupal can do for them and why it's great. So how are we going to do this? So the Promote Drupal initiative is here to create standardized marketing materials that we can use externally to promote what the Drupal community does. And of course, these can be leveraged by the community. And we're talking here about, targeting marketing decision makers, technical decision makers, and just staying relevant in a marketplace where a lot of our competitors spend a lot of money on marketing. So the Promote Drupal initiative was initially launched by the Drupal Association, which led to the creation of a corporate video and a Drupal handbook that has some strategic messaging. And over the years, community members have been involved in helping out with things like translating press releases and creating the Drupal pitch deck. And more recently, we've decided to take an approach that's a bit more organized to try and get people rallied around certain goals. And so last year, we created some dedicated committees to tackle specific tasks. And this has been a great way to pair volunteers with things that are really interesting to them that we can handle in a shorter period of time. So we have an Evaluator Committee, Drupal ambassadors, a strategic initiatives committee, and hopefully soon a social media committee. And right now there's actually a committee at work promoting DrupalCon Portland. So let me introduce you to the Evaluator Committee. This group of people is specifically working on creating evergreen marketing materials that we can use on Drupal.org to specifically target evaluators, which historically haven't been as well served by Drupal.org. So we've been gathering surveys, looking at analytics, and starting to create new copy and UX suggestions for some key landing pages. And the results of this have been some wireframes that hopefully will be deployed soon. The Drupal ambassadors are representing almost every continent in the world, and this committee is really interested in creating content for a technical audience interested in using Drupal. And one of the things that they've come up with is a kind of 2-page PDF that targets the technical audience who have tried Drupal in the past and are interested in rediscovering it. So it's also kind of an external audience. And the third committee is really hard at work. They're the Strategic Initiatives Committee, and they're interested in explaining what the strategic initiatives are all about, but to external audiences. And so this kind of can serve to highlight some of the innovation and the roadmap of Drupal to people who aren't insiders. And this committee's come up with logos for strategic initiatives, and the Olivero theme, as well as coming up with the communications, a pitch deck for each one of these that describes the goals and where it's going. And so hopefully this will be used for future marketing efforts as well. So who can contribute to Promote Drupal? Of course, Anyone with a marketing background in social media, content writing, graphic design, SEO, you'll have a lot to offer, but really anyone who's passionate about Drupal and wants to increase its adoption, we would love to have you involved. And so to get involved, please hop on over to our Slack channel. There's also a page up on Drupal.org where you can find out more, and there's a form there you can fill in to express your interest. Hope to hear from you soon.
So Promote Drupal is really a good place to be if you want to get involved in a variety of different activities and just have a break from other work that you do. I really like, for me personally, being involved in these various things like event organization and promotions and development and organizing initiatives, etc. It really helps to get to know a lot of people and get to have a wide variety of experience in the community. So the next topic is really close to anyone's heart who's been working on Drupal.org on your projects, and this is going to get you a lot of information on what's coming from the Gitlab initiative. And that is where Neil comes in.
All right. So yeah, I'm working on the GitLab Acceleration Initiative, and it's really improving contribution tools on Drupal.org. So this will be a short version of my talk tomorrow, and yeah, tomorrow I'll go into more of the details. These are going to be the highlights of changes you'll see. So I work for the Drupal Association. So we do all of the stuff that keeps Drupal.org running, especially get.drupalcode.org, our GitLab installation. This initiative, it's really improving developer tools, and GitLab happens to be our main developer tool. And we've had it on get.drupalcode.org for a couple years now, and we started out just using it as repositories for code, but GitLab has merge requests and issues. And here's the 3 things we're working on at once and 3 things we're planning at once for issues. And yeah, this I'll go into more detail tomorrow. And also at the same time, Drupal.org runs on Drupal 7, so we want to progress towards being able to update past that. Projects and releases, those aren't changing very much. Those are staying on Drupal.org. We want all of this metadata, all this fielded stuff to put into the project browser. GitLab isn't a tool for browsing projects. Releases need to stay the same as well. We've been opening up more functionality in GitLab progressively. So SSH keys used to be on Drupal.org. You could also put in GPG keys. Preferences are where we have the dark mode hidden and other stuff like that. And yeah, project pages, you've probably already seen changes there. Drupal.org had a big database of all the commits that we're phasing out because that's extra stuff to maintain. If we're doing more work with GitLab, we need to balance it out some other way. So the maintainers, the app faces, profile pages, those are going to be changed pretty soon as well because they have the big list of commits that we're not going to have in our database anymore. And should probably be some sort of link over to the Drupal, the GitLab profile, which has GitLab's view of that information. GitLab CI, the big theme there is it's decentralizing. Every project will be able to set up their own CI the way they want it. And from the association's perspective, we can offload some of the things that are more cumbersome for us to maintain. And that means the decentralization part, every maintainer is going to have to set up their GitLab CI YAML file to actually run the tests. And we're going to find ways to make that more smooth for maintainers. And also, when a maintainer switches their project to GitLab CI, that's when that maintainer is saying they don't accept patch files anymore because GitLab doesn't know what a patch file is. So start using merge requests. Let's see. And onto issues. We do want GitLab to be the issue queue at some point. And again, that'll be another migration per project. The key thing we want to preserve from Drupal's issues is this sense of collaboration. Many people work on especially core issues. Issue credit, we also need to do that. Currently, GitLab doesn't have any sort of issue credit system, and we're not betting on them implementing it in time for us. But so the current plan is to build that over again, and it'll suck up metadata from the GitLab installation. And for migrating issues, we have all these references to issues that we can't do anymore, like the commit counts. So those are going to have to be replaced somehow. So change records, documentation, there's all sorts of things that cross-reference issues. So ways to help. I'll be giving more of a presentation tomorrow. We have the meta issue GitLab channel on Drupal Slack. There's weekly meetings like the other things. And yeah, use merge requests, and a few projects have GitLab CI enabled right now. Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff going on there. Better to get to know about that. And our final speaker is a very fierce Wim Leers. From the photo is from a table tennis tournament, where he was the marketing face of a table tennis tournament.
Yeah,
He's
Gabor.
also marketing face of Seek Editor 5 though, and he's gonna talk about that now.
Thank you, Gabor. Yeah, you informed me just this morning that that is the photo you used, so thank you for that. So yeah, I'm here to talk about Seek Editor 4 versus 5. As you know, we have been using Seek Editor 4 since 9 years now, actually. And they did a lot of work to make sure the Drupal plus Seek Editor experience is as good as possible. They built custom things such as advanced content filter and widgets, which are making this actually possible. And as you can see, I just dragged and dropped in an image. It was a data URI, which is not good. I'm dragging in an image into the image dialog, setting alternative text. It appears, but the dialog keeps being front and center. You need to keep going into the dialog to do anything. And that's kind of, it was a revolution at the time, if you will, but we can do better now with Seek Editor 5. So Seek Editor 5 is a complete rewrite. There's nothing, not a single thread of code shared between Seek Editor 4 and 5. It's not using the browser as much anymore. It has its own data model and so on, but it also has a vastly improved developer experience, but also a vastly improved editing experience, as you will see now. So this is Seek Editor 5 in Drupal, and I just dragged in an image. You can see that the same image works just fine. But now the dragged in image actually resulted in an upload and in a proper URL. Still no dialogue to be seen. You can see that exclamation point that warned me, nudged me that I should actually enter an alt text, toggling on a caption. No more dialogue. So it's 10 times smoother. There's no more distractions. There's no more that Drupal form-centric nature to the UX. How can you get it? This is how you get it. You just go to the text formats configuration UI. It's currently on Seek Editor 4. You switch it to Seek Editor 5. There's information, messages informing you of what exactly happened, what the nuances are and differences in configuration. But yeah, this is all you need to do today. If you are in Drupal 9.3 or 9.4, that's it. So those were actually our key goals for going to Seek Editor 5. We wanted to make sure that as you move to Seek Editor 5, no data is left behind, of course, making the upgrade path as smooth as possible, as the previous image showed you, and making sure that our integrations, the ones that Drupal does for media, images, and so on, are actually matching the Seek Editor 5 user experience, which is why there were no more dialogues. This is what remains. These are the remaining things for Seek Editor 5 to be stable. So there's 4 big buckets, and the biggest one is actually upstream blockers. So thanks to Laurie, we've actually been finding a lot of critical bugs upstream. And actually some of you at Drupal Developer Days have already confirmed some of them. But the good news is that the Seek Editor team is actually aware of these. And actually at the end of this week, most of them, or at least many of them, will already be fixed. So really this is the time to start testing Seek Editor 5. And it was not just that list. This is the complete list of stable blockers for Seek Editor 5. There's lots more issues. These are just the stable blockers, but you can see how much is done and what actually remains. the previous slide showed you what remained, and it's a fraction of what has been achieved. So it's been done by Peter, who actually started to work on Seekeditor 5, and then Ben, Laurie, and myself working for Acquia on the Seekeditor 5 upgrade path, but not just us. There's lots of people in the community also contributing, and actually that list is now outdated as of yesterday, because several of you have already been contributing here at Drupal Developer Days. It's also not just us on the Drupal side. We need to constantly collaborate with upstream to make sure that we implement things in the most future-looking way forward, most future-forward-looking way possible, reporting bugs, getting features implemented upstream, and so on. So it's thanks to CK Source, the company behind Seekeditor, that is happening. And yeah, they want to make sure that Drupal does well. We want to make sure that Seekeditor is also represented and integrated well. So what can you do today? Well, go to this URL. It lays out how you can try the Seekeditor 5 upgrade path, test it with your content, and let us know how it works. In the Seekeditor 5 Slack channel on Drupal, Seekeditor 5 channel on Drupal Slack, of course, or here at Drupal Developer Days. You can come and find us. That's it. Thank you.
All right. So now it's your time to ask your questions. Who's going to be the first one?
Yeah, thank you for the session. It was really interesting. Got two questions, one for Wim, another one for Neil. Wim, about the CK editor, you said you started from scratch, so it's a totally new code. With the previous code, it was theoretically possible to switch on another editor, like TinyMCE or whatever. Did you had such concern writing the new version of the module, or is it still quite hard to switch, for example, on another editor, for example?
It's exactly the same. So we didn't touch the code that, so Drupal has this built-in thing called the text editor module, and that's the thing that makes the connection between a text format and a editor. That's how Seekeditor 4 was integrated. Seekeditor 5 uses that same API. There's no special exemptions or integrations. It's just a module. So just as before, you could write a TinyMC integration or a whatever editor integration. So it should be as simple or as hard.
Okay, thank you. And for Neil, about the credits, you mentioned modification in the way the credits would be displayed through the GitLab commits or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How do you plan to integrate non-technical work with this new system?
So yeah, I mean, the system's going to be completely separate from GitLab. Since GitLab's a product, there's no altering what's on the page. We get what GitLab is. So yeah, it'll be a separate system. I think, like before, I think issues for meetings are great because that's contextual. They can reference all of the other issues and plan things out there. Stuff like events or documentation, the issue credit system is for issues. There's metadata in all of these other places, like events on Drupal.org. They have a list of speakers, a list of sponsors. Like that's credit, yeah, we shouldn't be thinking of trying to shoehorn everything into issues or a credit system. It's the credits, recording the metadata is there as you go. And we summarize everything on your user page. Yeah, and also credit is anything on your user page, and for organizations, anything in an organization page. And yeah, I hope people don't focus on like the big numbers too much. There's no, especially for people, you can't make a single like this person has this much credit. That's not a good thing to do.
Okay, thanks.
Next one. Oh, on the far back.
Okay.
Almost. Almost.
It's okay. Hello, Selchuk here. I'm having a question for the Drupal 7 to Drupal maybe 9 or 10 for Drupal.org. Yes. So I have this question. In the past, we made modules and we had different modules for different ideas. Will it be the same on the new Drupal.org, or will there be a new concept for that?
As far as contributed modules, what?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this will be, I mean, from a front end perspective, we're, we hope any migration is something you don't notice too much. So yeah, we're not changing the structure of the site.
Okay, that is my question, because if it remains the same, sometimes you have some alternative modules that are basically doing the same thing.
Are you asking about Drupal.org's code base?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, for the, it's like any migration, we'll have to evaluate case by case, and for with the Gitlab stuff, we're keeping project module. The projects will be there, and that's kind of a good something Drupal's good at. It's fielded data, but project issue that can go away since Gitlab will take that over. So yeah, a couple hundred small decisions, case by case, figure out,
Okay,
how-
so the concept stays a little bit of the same of what we had.
yeah, and any migration, if we start tacking on things like redesign, rebuild, like that makes the project slower. So
Yeah, okay, understandable.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, so this could be also in the realm of the project browser initiative, because they are looking at highlighting the top solutions for whatever definition of top for certain problem areas, or highlighting ecosystems of projects with like, this is the project that most people use for, I don't know, web services. There's a bunch of different solutions for doing web services. So they are tackling this problem space of trying to suggest the top things that most people gravitate towards. And I think if we manage to get that in, when we manage to get that into Drupal core, that will help drive the ecosystem more towards rallying around those ecosystems, I think, and hopefully less towards rebuilding the same things in slightly different ways. So that's part of the goal of the Project Browser initiative.
Well, great, because it would be great to have that.
Yeah.
Because every agency or in-house development teams, they are building so much of the same thing it would be great to share it back to the community at an easy, simple way. That was my question. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. There's the next question. And in the meantime, I will say that there's a few folks sitting here who are interested in the Drupal 9 upgrade of localized.drupal.org. And we'll meet after the session somewhere in the contribution room. So if somebody else is interested in the Drupal 9 upgrade of localized.drupal.org, we'll start looking at the modules that are under localized.drupal.org and how they relate together and what can be done with them.
So Neil sat down, but he shouldn't.
Okay.
So first of all, thank you for all the work you've been doing in GitLab CI integration. It's amazing. GitLab integration. It's really amazing.
Thanks.
So one first, like I have like two questions. One is about the patches that still exist. I see a lot of people on my modules that there's a merge request, but they need to, in Composer, they need to have a link. So they submit a patch that's basically the dump out of the merge request, because they don't see the small tiny link that's on top with grayed out that you can barely see it. So that should definitely be the UI on that link for the plain text version definitely needs to be improved.
So you should never use that link if you're using that for a deployment. If you have that in your Composer JSON file, link to any pull request, merge request, whether it's from us or GitHub or GitLab.com.
Yep.
So those are dynamic bits of code. If someone pushes something to the merge request, it'll be on your live site in the next deployment if you don't have a system to catch those changes or someone pay attention to catch those changes.
Yeah,
they might not be,
might not be the same version yet.
Yeah, might not be what you want to run on your site.
So we kind of need
save,
also something.
Save a local copy of any patch you're deploying to your code base. Drupal.org was never meant to be a patch hosting service for your deployments.
Yeah. Okay, so well, maybe one suggestion there then would be that when we create that there's a link to the specific commit, and not just to the dynamic merge request. Okay, so and then the next one is about GitLab CI that I'm very interested on, and if you could give me a link to switch all my projects over to GitLab CI, I'll do them now. So the thing there, I saw briefly that you're including you're taking advantage of the includes part of GitLab CI. Is there going to be already like a lot of work done that people can just include in GitLab CI and take care? That it takes care of the normal patterns like linting, that I don't actually have to call PHPCS. I can just say, if I want PHPCS, I'm going to do like a step linting and then include the GitLab CI from Drupal.org that already does that.
Yeah, that's the hope. We need to build that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the formulating those patterns are happening right now. So if you join the GitLab channel and join the GitLab alpha testing, the current step is formulating those patterns. It already supports includes. So like some of the projects that are in the alpha testing, they just include the Drupal Spoons CI template. There's a one line, and then it does the default testing that Drupal Spoons figured out, and it does the linting, and it does all the tests. And then you can piece it apart and use parts of that. So the current state is figuring out those templates that you can then include.
I mean, if you have like patterns that cover 90% of the case, then most people will be happy. And if you want to be special, you be special. You do you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the current state. That now is when the patterns are being figured out. So last question. Who wants to do the last?
Can I just add to that last one, Gabor?
Yeah.
Just one thing is like the barrier to entry to contributing to Drupal CI was really, really high. But the barrier to entry to contributing to GitLab CI to add your own template and then spread it as best practice to the rest of the project is much, much lower. So I hope that we're going to see a lot of community effort and community coming together to build a great experience in GitLab CI, because it never happened for Drupal CI, and fingers crossed it will now happen.
Thanks. I've got a question for Alex. I'm really enthusiastic to hear about distributions and them becoming a bit better and less obnoxious. What you were saying about having multiple profiles on a single website and being able to apply them afterwards, it really made me think about the recipes that Symfony has on their website. I think they call it Symfony Flex or something. Is that like the pattern that you're looking at? Are you even looking at like reusing stuff that has been made elsewhere, or is this going to be new Drupalism?
That's a really good question. I know that we've been thinking about Symfony Flex. I know that Catch has done an investigation into how we could use it, especially to try and manage like using different Symfony versions on the same version of course, so to allow Drupal 9 to use Symfony 5 and Symfony 4. Specifically with this initiative, we haven't gone there yet, but we're definitely interested in looking at things like that. Nothing's been decided. The goals have been outlined, but the way we're going to get there are very vague, hand-wavy issues. We're in that kind of ideation phase. So if you'd like to come and show us how Flex could help solve those problems, then I'm all ears.
Thanks.
All right, our time's up. So if you have more questions, then feel free to reach out to these folks and please join them in the contribution rooms and get involved in these initiatives. Thank you.